where Jesus Christ alone had the right to rule and to reign. They wanted Jesus Christ to be in that place of supremacy and of power. And so as we think of that today, surely we have to recall to our minds that we today enjoy all the blessings, all the freedoms, all the liberties of worship and service because of what these men and women accomplished and achieved. But what are we doing to preserve that? What are we doing to maintain those freedoms and those liberties at this present time? The church, we have said, is people. And therefore, if the church is people, it comes down to you and to me. There's an old couplet, sometimes dismissed by the purists as being mere doggerel, but it has a very important and a very practical thing to say to us. And it's this. Listen to the words carefully. If everyone in my church was just like me, what kind of church would my church be? The church is people. But the second thing that we discover about this tremendous truth with regard to the concept of the church was that they were prepared to accept the laws and the teachings of Christ. Now today we seem to want to be disciples of Christ, but on our terms. We want to be selective in our obedience. But you know, you can't be selective in obedience to Christ. It's all or nothing. I wonder what we are doing today. Are we simply prepared to accept obedience in those areas where it is easygoing and where it is popular? Or are we prepared to accept, to be obedient to Christ when the tide is running against us, when popular opinion doesn't seem to fit into the situation? For example, are we really concerned enough to show our obedience to Christ in the way that we keep the Lord's Day special? Are we concerned about the Christian education of our families? Are we concerned about the way that we communicate the gospel to men and women? These are the areas that call us to face what discipleship and obedience really means. But then, of course, they not only saw the lordship of Christ in the family and in the church, but they also saw it in relation to the nation. Now, I know we have come a long way since that day when the blue banner was unfurled and the slogan was heralded across this land of ours for Christ's crown and covenant. But what the Covenanters stood for was not some vain utopian dream. They really meant what they said. For they wanted men and women to realize that Christ was indeed King over all. And when we stop to think of that kind of situation, we're reminded very forcibly that they saw that this nation of ours enjoyed such wonderful blessings from the hand of God, and that the nation had to recognize that in receiving these blessings, God has made it known that he was setting Christ over the nation. And the nation which does not accept the sovereignty of Jesus Christ over it to rule is, as John Calvin says, not a legitimate sovereignty, but a usurpation. The rule of Christ is so important and so vital in these days. And this is what we are called to recognize. Now, the Covenanters faced that situation. And they faced it with bravery and with courage. And we know that the nation can introduce laws that will advance social and moral virtues. The nation can introduce laws that will raise standards. But we come back to this point again in this issue, that it takes people to implement these laws. What if the nation does not bring in laws like these? What if the nation brings in laws that restrict, that are repressive, that do not allow freedom of choice? What happens then? Well, here again, the Covenanters bring a message straight from their own experience, for they faced this issue, and they faced it head on. And if you look at it this carefully, what the Covenanters did in their day was just as revolutionary as anything that has come from South America or from Eastern Europe. Why? They even refused to acknowledge allegiance to the king. Over there in Aird's Moss, Richard Cameron laid down his life for that very principle. For just a few weeks before that, he had renounced the allegiance to the king of the day by saying that his greater allegiance was to Jesus Christ. That cost him his life. But where Richard Cameron led, the nation was to follow. And in less than 10 years, the situation had changed, and there came about the glorious revolution. You see, if we are going to change the world, we have to change people. And it's people, again, that matter. The Covenanters recognized that the nation could provide those things that were vital and necessary for the maintenance of true religion, and that the church in turn could contribute so much to the life of the nation. They were mutually exclusive as far as their position was concerned, but there was so much that they could do for each other. And they recognized also that true righteousness in the nation could only come about as people, as leaders, yea, indeed, as those who were in the places of authority and power recognized the supreme authority of Jesus Christ. As we look at our nation today and we see the social declension, as we see the moral standards that have fallen, and as we see the spiritual bankruptcy that has gripped the church, is it not time that we began to think about this? That the prescription for true morality and righteousness in the nation lies in our obedience to the Word of God and submission to Jesus Christ. Now, we haven't been visiting these places simply to erect banners to the Covenanters or to romanticize them in any way. What we have done is to look again at the story and to learn from these people. And they have much to teach us. They have much to show us.